In form, we do something for God in country, and pass again to paintings. That's a very good one right there. I am GNA, kick your butt. Cheek, can you threaten to kick me in a funny manner at 59? Rick Harrison is going through a nightmare no father ever desires to enjoy. His son has been sentenced to life in jail for years. Pawn Stars became a success, displaying off rare treasures and big offers. But in the back of the cameras, matters have been falling apart. The as soon as proud Harrison family is now tangled in proceedings. Betrayal in a crisis that no person noticed coming. What stunning reality has Rick been hiding all this time? Music in, because what he is approximately to reveal will make the television industry crumble to its middle, the pawn empire that fell aside. Rick Harrison constructed the gold and silver pawn shop from the ground up. The use of his sharp eye for price and a deep knowledge of records, his father Richard Antique Guy Harrison become the spine of the business, running it with a strict but clever approach. Whilst he handed away in 2018, the balance of strength shifted, and with it so did the fate of the entire family. At the same time as Rick kept the commercial enterprise alive, cracks began to reveal legal trouble along with his personal mother financial struggles, and inner war commenced to weigh down the Assoon's thriving empire. But even the Wan's troubles light in contrast to what has befell now his son's surprising destiny in the back of bars. Before we delve into this, it is clear that Rick Harrison's global has crumbled in methods no one saw coming, and what comes subsequent will leave you surely taken aback. We have a media now that it is you understand bomb throwing. It's bomb throwing news. So it is now not in reality news. I mean, literally, you have gotten to the point in which you bought networks like CNN, or simply the reality of what has took place to his son is something no father ever wants to face. A existence sentence, it is no longer only some years behind bars. That is all the time. And it raises a bigger question. How did matters get so awful? What went wrong? This is not just about a commercial enterprise empire anymore. This is about a family falling aside. The display might have made them well known, but repute definitely wasn't enough to preserve things collectively. And now one guy is left to choose up the pieces of a own family name. This is crumbling under the weight of crime, greed, and betrayal. The empire he constructed is now not just about uncommon antiques and big cash deals. It's approximately survival from preventing, from manage of the pawn store to combating accusations from his very own mother. He has been dealing with warfare on all fronts. His mom, Joanne Harrison, has taken him to court, docket over commercial enterprise, property claiming. She become manipulated into signing over her percentage of the store, whilst she becomes susceptible if real. That means he has been holding on to an enterprise that legally won't even be his. However, if fake-it method someone is the usage of an aged lady to try and take him down, either manner, it is no longer a good search for the own family, and then there is the cash the pawn save that, after raked in over $1 million each year, has taken a extreme hit. Whilst the pandemic struck, sales plummeted, income fell considerably, and suddenly the commercial enterprise wasn't the cash gadget it once changed into on pinnacle of that. Lawsuits have drained his resources even. Similarly, the information, and he does something horrific. Nobody ever assumes all medical doctors are terrible. It is just for some reason it is pawned agents. The factor is Hollywood's vilified pawnbrokers, and it is simply now not right. His empire is not just in hassle, it's at risk of collapsing completely. And with his son now locked away for existence, one cannot assist. However, marvel if that is the very last blow in order to bring the entirety crashing down. His mom had enough. Uninterested in expecting money that by no means got here, she took matters into her own palms. The day-by-day mail broke the news that Joanne slapped a restraining order on her own son, stopping him from promoting off family assets. The reason she claimed he had stopped sending her the money she turned into owed from Richard Schur, the enterprise, as soon as upon a time the one's tests have been coming in at over $200,000, until he simply reduced them off in the 12 months 2020. And Joanne wasn't about to take a seat again, and let it slide. She filed the criminal order, hoping to pressure him to restart those bills. Not only that, but she also wanted to make certain he couldn't hide money or promote off anything that belonged to the circle of relatives. What made it even worse turned into that. Joanne, at over 80 years old, became dealing with extreme fitness troubles that required steady care. Her scientific payments had been sky high. Reportedly over 100 zero in step with month, however, the real shocker, he didn't even hear about the restraining order from his very own mom. He located out via the news. It's right, he grew to become on the TV, scroll the headlines, and boom, his personal mom became taking prison movement in opposition to him. He tried to reach out to her more than one instances over the next few months. However, she wasn't picking up. Negotiating something became impossible. And instead of coping with matters in personal, the entire mess exploded into a totally public prison warfare. And simply while you suppose it could not get messier, there has been even greater drama brewing inside the Pawn Stars' circle of relatives. However, the problems in Rick's family have been simply the start due to the fact the humans close to them have been approximately to bring even greater trouble. The problem that accompanied friend Lee and her chum. Lee, you would possibly recognize him as the adorable goofball from the show, but behind the curtain the man turned into a magnet for trouble inside the 12 months 2012 cameras, stuck him in a wild avenue combat in Hollywood. Some guy ended up bruised and bleeding, and Chumbley ran from the scene, his excuse self-protection. He claimed the man had threatened him and his pals with a gun, but that turned into just a warm-up for what became coming next 4 years later. Chumbley located himself in deep problem again, this time tons worse. Police raided his home at the same time as investigating allegations of assault. What they discovered inside a full-blown catastrophe: substances, guns, evidence that painted a photo some distance worse than everybody ought to have imagined. Police officers exposed a stash of narcotics, including meth, weed, and Xanax, along with a dozen guns, maximum of them unregistered. The assault costs had been subsequently dropped, however. Chumbley wasn't taking walks away smooth. He needed to strike a deal to keep away from extreme prison time, pleading guilty to a legal guns price and a tried substance ownership fee, and just whilst you suppose that's enough scandal for one fact show, another bombshell drops, unique components to it. A variety of people, just like the circle of relatives interaction. Youngsters love friend Lee, so I suggest there's simply loads of things occurring there. This time it's his very own son Corey, known as Large, hosts on the show. Corey had a popularity for partying tough, but one night matters were given out of manage-all through a forestall on a motorcycle tour. Corey rolled right into a bar in Jeffersontown and let out, with witnesses stated he were ingesting heavily all week. In that nighttime, he took things to an entire new level. He ended up urinating in public, throwing a bar stool, and getting himself kicked out. No longer precisely an amazing look for a man who desired to take over the circle of relatives' enterprise. Corey tried to shake off the terrible press, however. Trouble simply wouldn't leave him by myself, he stated, sorry, and placed on his first-class allure, hoping people might forget. However, 2021 got here knocking with more horrific information. This time it wasn't just some minor difficulty. It changed into a complete blown mess that left people questioning the entirety, the headlines informed, a wild story approximately, an RV, a smash, and plenty of unanswered questions. And much like that, his reputation took any other hit, making it clean that his issues had been a long way from over lower back in 2020. Corey rented an RV for a touch getaway within the California desolate tract. Sounds innocent, right? Not quite. The vehicle's proprietor, William Harrison, claimed that Corey did not return the RV when he turned into Imagine 2, and while he did, it changed into absolutely wrecked, no longer just a few scratches or a busted mirror. We are talking approximately a catastrophe on wheels. The awning was ripped off the inside, changed into trashed, and it seemed like a tornado had gone through it. Even worse, the whole thing changed into filled with empty bottles and, for some bizarre purpose, eggs. What sort of vacation become that the owner needed to cancel 10 reservations because the RV became unusable, and the repair charges were estimated at a whopping $30,000, but whilst it got here time to take obligation, Corey wasn't exactly stepping up tag on it as properly. And I should accept as true with him, I suppose, girls are better negotiators than they get credit for. As an alternative, his team downplayed the state of affairs, announcing the RV had some mechanical troubles and needed to be towed, returned, that become their only statement. Insurance became supposed to deal with it. However, that did not erase the harm done to each the vehicle and Corey's already shaky reputation. And as if prison problems were not sufficient, Corey became coping with personal battles too. His weight had skyrocketed to a risky degree, forcing him to undergo gastric bypass surgical operation in 2010. He misplaced over 100 lb, but that failed to suggest life abruptly have become less complicated. Coping with the pawn saved dealing with fame and trying to stay healthy, all piled up, making his non-public struggles simply as overwhelming as his public ones. As a minimum, he had Chumley, who additionally determined to start his own weight reduction path, stimulated by means of Corey's transformation. However, no matter how a lot weight he lost, the bags of his beyond never seemed to move away. Then came the scandal that shook the entire display. Pawn Stars wasn't pretty much, haggling over antique cash and uncommon collectibles. It became constructed on consider, and a massive part of that, agree with, got here from the professionals who authenticated gadgets. But when the one's experts started out getting caught up in scandals, human beings started out to wonder, become any of this even actual, just while matters seemed terrible enough an even larger shock got here. Now, not from the own family, however. From the specialists human beings relied on the most, the specialists who lied to absolutely everyone. One of the first, most important blows got here in 2015 when Johnny Jimenez Jr., the go-to man for antique toys, were given into serious trouble. Pictures surfaced of him allegedly assaulting his girlfriend out of doors, a Las Vegas eating place. He tried to explain it away, pronouncing he turned into just supporting her after a wild night. Time of consuming, however, the damage become accomplished. F started looking at him and the show differently. If someone like Johnny had skeletons in his closet, who else did? Then there was John Resnikoff, the so-called expert in autograph authentication. In 2011, he, with a bit of luck, claimed that a signature on a Godfather script belonged to Al Pacino. Huge mistake. It became out the autograph clearly belonged to the film's manufacturer, Al Ruddy. It might have seemed like a small mix-up, however. It raised a bigger query. What number of different instances had the so-known as experts been wrong? And what sort of cash had people misplaced because of their errors? But the one's scandals have been not anything compared to what occurred in 2015. Drew Max, a sports memorabilia professional, changed into exposed for authenticating faux objects. That's right, he put his stamp of approval on bogus sports activities, memorabilia that later got auctioned off for massive money, while consumers found out that they were scammed. They have been livid. Complaints started rolling in, accusing him of using his TV fame to present credibility to nugatory gadgets, and just like that, the display's entire basis crumbled. A little more, this bat turned into simplest used by Josu. The bat version itself is primarily based on Tayyab, but it changed into really never inside the fingers of Tabab. For the duration of a Chief League game, there's certainly nothing Josu accessible that might command that form of top class. If one expert was going for walks, a scam what number of others were bending the reality as extra scandals piled up. Pawn Stars needed to trade the show, turned into now not just about uncommon finds, and Paxling had to work tougher to preserve people's agree with a few fans stood by way of willing to consider that a few bad apples failed to damage the whole batch. Others weren't so forgiving. They questioned every deal, every appraisal, each so-called expert within the worst part. They weren't wrong to marvel. Pawn Stars started as a mixture of records and leisure, a show wherein human beings introduced in bizarre and rare items, and his group gave us a little history lesson. With each deal it became a laugh, unpredictable, and made you marvel what sort of loopy artifact might stroll via that door subsequent. However, something modified the surprise and excitement, got buried under scripted drama, and shortly sufficient the entirety felt like a setup. Dealers have been pre-selected, objects were appraised earlier, and unexpectedly the real moments were not actual anymore. And then came the circle of relatives' feuds. At first, the arguments had been true and funny, but as time went on, it had become painfully clear that they had been just for show. The point of interest shifted from cool historic reveals to fake drama among Rick, Corey, and Chumley enthusiasts tuned in to see rare collectibles, not a truth soap opera. I pitched it to 17 different production groups, what changed into the authentic call of Pawn Stars. There was godlike Vegas, Pawn. There was a bunch of different. However, did the manufacturers care? Nope. They doubled down, turning the display into a cheap version of a Circle of Relatives drama, and longtime visitors were not happy. Talking of drama, the solid members themselves commenced to experience more like characters in a horrific sitcom than actual people. Rick became always the strict boss. Corey became the clueless heir, and Chumley become the bumbling comedian relief. Besides, in real life, Chumley's criminal problems made his goofy television character seem absolutely indifferent from truth. And if that wasn't enough, Rick tried to show the show's achievement right into an enterprise empire with Pawn Plaza, a retail center close to the store. Spoiler alert, it flopped. Companies closed down one after any other, and proprietors blame Rick for not advertising the vicinity enough. The concept being close to Pawn Stars could guarantee foot visitors, but it seems TV repute would not usually translate to commercial enterprise achievement. Then there was Libya Black. She joined the store in 2012, have become a fan favorite and then vanished. The reason old nude modeling images surfaced online, and the display reducer unfastened without a second concept fan weren't satisfied. Many noticed it as a sexist pass, considering different solid contributors had their own questionable beyond however had been still at the display. Olivia sued, but nothing really came of it. She moved on, together with her career. However, the incident left a bad flavor in the mouths of fanatics who, as soon as idea the show was above cheap reality TV antics, within the display, already fading one, scandal changed everything and made people query if the store become ever honest, the coin deal that uncovered the entirety after which got here the scandal. They clearly made people question the integrity of the store. The Stolen Coin series in 2014, the store sold a collection of uncommon coins from a woman who had allegedly stolen them from her uncle. The kicker, by the point the police got concerned, the cash had already been melted down or bought. The store claimed that they'd no idea the coins had been stolen, but that didn't forestall human beings from thinking. The entire scenario made humans ask how many different shady deals had befell off-camera Pawn Stars. Kept going even when it regarded a door. It was time to stop the show controlled. To remaining for more than 20 seasons, putting on through scandal after scandal at the start, human beings cherished looking because every episode brought something surprising. A consumer may stroll in with an antique coin, a signed baseball, or maybe a chunk of history no person had seen before. Rick, Corey, and Chumley might argue over its value, call it in professional, and haggle over the price. Basically what you've got is a, without a doubt, cool coin that is collectible, as it's, you realized, from Jerusalem. It's from the time of Christ, supposedly. Judas acquired 30 portions of silver to essentially drop a dime on Jesus. It felt real, like stepping internal an actual pawn. Key where something should show up, however, because the seasons went by, means of that feeling started to vanish. The record's lessons that when made the display stand out became shorter, and the offers felt too clean, too planned, rather than an actual business where human beings bargain hard for a deal. The shop became just another set for fact television, and as matters have became greater predictable, fans began losing interest. By the point the display reached its 21st season, the signs and symptoms had been there. Humans have been now not tuning in like they used to. The show that, when pulled in thousands and thousands of viewers, began to sense love. It became best putting on. Because of its call, the exhilaration was gone. It changed into no longer approximately rare treasures or surprising deals. It had come to be just some other formulaic reality display. The conversations felt scripted. The negotiations regarded rehearsed. And the magic that had as soon as made the show interesting became fading. Longtime fans who had stuck with it from the start could not assist but notice that they had watched Pawn Stars develop from a fresh, thrilling concept right into a global sensation. But now it felt like it was walking on empty. Rick Harrison, being the businessman he is, noticed the writing at the wall. He knew that nothing lasts all the time, especially in television. Years before, he had attempted expanding his enterprise with Pawn Plaza shopping center, subsequent to the shop that become meant, to herald even extra visitors. That plan didn't work out. But Rick found out from at the gold and silver pawn store, however, Nonetheless, had price it turned into famous, now with humans traveling from throughout just to take an image in the front of it while TV scores dropped. The store remained a visitor enchantment. So Rick started focusing on maintaining it, going for walks in preference to counting on the display. He nevertheless seemed on Pawn Stars, however. He turned into also searching in advance, ensuring his business could closing, despite the fact that the Digicam stopped rolling the History Channel. On the alternative hand, did not make any predominant announcements approximately canceling the show. There has been no authentic farewell, no final episode to wrap things up. It simply slowly dwindled from the highlight. However, everybody paying interest knew what turned into going on. My name is Rick Harrison. I have a bit television display. I have been on TV for 10 years. I am on television in 150 international locations. Truth TV had modified and Pawn Stars, not in shape, into the new world of streaming and rapid shifting content material. The days of sitting down to look at long episodes about rare coins and historic guns had been being changed by quick attention-grabbing motion pictures. Online, the target market had moved on, and so had TV now. Looking returned what's left of Pawn Stars. It is a display that made a top-notch impact, however. Additionally, left behind a complex legacy. It took a small family-run pawn shop and turned it into one of the maximal recognizable corporations inside the international 4 years. People visited simply to meet Rick, Corey, and Chumley, hoping to see an actual deal manifest proper in the front of them. However, the show additionally revealed the fact of Truth Television. As time went on, it had become clean that not the entirety become as actual as it seemed. The complaints, the behind-scenes drama, the scripted moments, all of it, modified how human beings regarded the display. What started out as an sincere study, a unique commercial enterprise, slowly have become just another amusement product. Is Rick Harrison's son's lifestyle sentence justified, or is there greater to this story that the public isn't always being instructed, may want to there be hidden info that could exchange the entirety we assume we recognize? The reality in the back of this shocking case continues to be unfolding, and the deeper we look, the greater questions arise. What do you consider justice served or a sad mistake? Inform us your mind inside the feedback, and bear in mind to like and subscribe for more.